What is the most supernatural thing you have seen that has happened in your own house? Part 2. Please do like, share, and subscribe. Not as creepy as other stories, but one time we woke up to the Nesquik spread all over the counter with little handprints in it. I was an only child, and we were hella poor, so Nesquik was a treat if we even had milk, often drank it with water. So it was obviously me, and I got in a lot of trouble for it. Fuck you, ghost child. Backstory. My grandpa was visiting us. He unfortunately passed from a heart attack in our home, specifically my room, and I was 5 at the time. The week after his funeral service, we started noticing things around the house, some all too obvious, too. He used to smoke cigars every night. We started to smell cigar smoke outside around the same time he used to smoke. His favorite show, Combat, would turn on all the TVs in the house at the same time every day. The cup he would use when he visited would rest in different spots around the house. His glucose reader that helped him monitor his diabetes would beep with the reading. My mom, it was her dad, said the hung pictures of him around the house were slightly tilted, and for me, I heard his gruff voice in my room saying, "Good night," twice that week. After that week, it stopped. I mean, it could easily be explained off as grief, and even my siblings moving things around the house. Whatever it was, it did comfort me after he passed. He was my best friend, this tough, sweet Korean War vet that would play with my baby doll with me. Saw a figure with no face walk towards my chair and kick it while I was exercising. It walked like it was chopped up frames in a movie or super sped up. I've seen that figure before many times in my dreams, and I don't know what it is. You know that series, The Haunting of Hill House? I'm not entirely convinced that it wasn't based on the house I lived in from the age of 9 to 20. That place was soul-sucking. Some stories. I felt what I thought was my father walk into the room and stop behind me, between the couches, pointed at the TV and the dining room table. It's a thing he'd do. I was like, yeah, there's nothing on, flicking through the channels. After I didn't hear him respond or walk away, I turned around and realized I was alone. Another time, I saw a shadow figure in my father's bedroom. I was walking down the long and dim corridor. Other stories include the time my father felt something grab the blankets and coverings from the foot of his bed and shake them up and down, or the time someone was heard walking on the front porch when there wasn't anyone out there, and a photo was taken which showed an unexplained foggy pillar, or the time my younger brother saw our deceased grandparent sitting in his chair out on the back porch, or the time I saw an unfamiliar man standing in front of what is now a boarded-up doorway when I was playing on the back lawn, or the time my father heard knocking along the slat boards in the corridor, which paused for the doorway before continuing on the other side and going on behind a freestanding bookshelf. 2/3 of an old hotel it was, separated and moved down the hill from its original site. Looking at photos and videos of the house and grounds fills me with a real weird feeling, like nostalgia and love because it was beautiful, and deep dread because it was awful. When my kid was young, we used to live in an old farmhouse where a woman had lived alone for many years when she died. She wasn't found for quite a while. Drawers in the kitchen would randomly be open, water and lights would turn on and off, this sort of thing. One night, I saw the drawer I had just closed open right back up and, not wanting to deal, went upstairs to bed. It was closed in the morning. One night, my wife woke me in absolute hysterics. She had heard a woman's voice speaking to her child by name on the baby monitor. She was legitimately terrified. One side of the basement was the oldest part of the house, and when I was down there one night, I saw a person out of the corner of my eye. They saw me and took off. I had no inkling of the supernatural in that moment. I was going to pursue, capture, and beat the shit out of whoever was in my house. The basement dead ends around the corner. No one there. I stood, staring at the stone foundation, feeling like I'd lost my mind for a moment, then chalked it up to another bit of the house's occasional spookiness. I never felt malevolence, but often felt something. I live in the UK, and the last place I rented was an old house that was built for soldiers returning from World War II. I often used to see shadows passing in from light sources in different rooms. His favorite was if I went to the loo and he would walk in front of the doorway and block off the light source temporarily. When I was watching TV, I'd often feel like there was someone just behind my shoulder, looking at me. Along with it all, I always felt a heavy sense of sadness and melancholy coming from this entity. My best guess is that there were a soldier who made it back from the war, but could not come to terms with what they did or saw over there. I checked the house records, and no one ever was reported to have died there, so I'm guessing it was old energy manifested. Still sad, and when I moved from there, I said goodbye to it and hoped it would find peace. It never did anything malicious. I think it was lonely and sad, whatever it was. We moved into my parents' current home when I was 8. The man who built the house had died of emphysema. I used to see a figure out of the corner of my eye all the time. It never really creeped me out or anything. I was just aware he was around. He dressed like a farmer, a big wide-brimmed straw hat, overalls, and a blue flannel shirt. After a while, I stopped seeing him and forgot about it. Years later, in my 20s, my parents moved to the countries for my dad's job, and I stayed in the house by myself, talking to my mom 2,000 kilometers away on the phone, and the subject of ghosts came up. She told me she used to see someone in her house for a few years too. Exact same description as me. I have sort of a strange one. My neighbor is a hairstylist, and I would go get my hair cut from her at her shop all the time. Well, she claimed her house was haunted and had a friend who claimed she was a medium. So the medium was getting her don't while I waiting, and she just casually drops that her house is built over a portal to the spirit world. I'm thinking, yeah, okay lady, she seems crazy. Well, fast forward maybe 15 minutes, and I see a little blonde-haired kid run past me and towards the back of the shop. I say something to the stylist like, hey, did you just see that kid run past me? Well, the median lady turns towards me and says, was she blonde and looked to be about 7 or so? Yeah. Do you know him? No. But I woke up this morning and saw him in the kitchen. I guess he followed me today. Like, excuse me, I don't mind horror or spooky things, but one thing I do not fuck with are ghost kids. No thank you. Not my own home, but my grandparents' house. Me and my bro were not allowed upstairs. No explanation why, just if you go upstairs, you will be grounded. Well, obviously we went upstairs. We get to the top of the stairs and turn left, and there's this cold spot, like literally I was shivering, and it was in front of an airing cupboard. I look towards my bro, and he's white as a fucking sheet, staring directly at the door behind me. He grabs my wrist and basically shoves me back down the stairs. I try and ask him what happened. He just shakes his head and refuses to tell me. A couple of years ago, I asked him what he saw, and his entire demeanor changed. His eyes went glassy, and he started sweating, and he just says, I don't know what you're talking about. To this day, I have no idea what happened, but I'm glad my bro had my back. Not in my house, but where I worked as a new RN, was specializing a patient one-on-one, not critical care. Did my checks and thought to myself, wouldn't it be nice to have the radio in the room on playing softly? I watched the switch physically switch on. My bad. I'm out in the hallway for a bit now. Was walking past the bathroom on another day, and shower buzzer went on. Turned around and went to investigate. No one there. No way someone could have gotten past me. We were 7 stories up, so no one went out the barred window either. Best story, there are more. We had a great patient with us, but seriously, anything that could have gone wrong with him went wrong. Pleural collection, a trachea gauze coughed up when we didn't use that type, and he'd been with us for months. Silent aspiration. I rang his wife to let her know he had passed away. Ward call doctor didn't know her. We did. I was truly sorry. That night, our team member on duty said it was a shame that he had passed away. 2 things happened. First, the buzzer in his empty room sounded 3 times, our signal for when one of us needed help at the time. Second, the roll-top dishwasher in the kitchen that we're sitting in slammed closed and turned on. The ward isn't there anymore. There was a redevelopment some years ago. My father-in-law sadly passed away before my then boyfriend, now husband, were ready to have children, but he always said he wanted a granddaughter because he only had sons and wanted to have a little girl to spoil. 2 years later, when my daughter was born, I noticed she would constantly look behind me instead of to my face when I nursed her. Then when she was 1 year and a half, almost 2, we were getting ready for bed. She sleeps with us. She would start to interact with something else in the room, like she would look at the corner of the room, pause as if someone is telling her something, laugh, and respond in baby talk or make faces. This happened every single night for months, and I always try to ignore it or say she's just being a baby and babies do this thing, right? She would always do this at bedtime, not during the day though. One night, it was so eerie how obvious it was that she was not playing with me, but with something else in the room, that I couldn't take it anymore and yelled at the corner she was looking at, "Stop it, you're scaring me." After that, it only happens from time to time, but my husband says his dad is now drinking his expensive whiskey, so I guess he was not so happy I yelled at him. This may sound weird, but I think my mom is messing with me from beyond the grave. When she was alive, she liked to play little pranks on people, harmless stuff, except for the time she pretended to be dead. Well, lately, I've had stuff go missing only to turn up in plain sight. Like I'll misplace a sock, look high and low for it, only to be right on my bed where I know I would have seen it. If it happened once, I'd chalk it up to me being absent-minded, but it was happening a few times a week. Well, today I brought home some groceries. I left some on the counter, 2 packs of tortillas. I used up 1 pack, and when I lifted it, my husband's apartment laundry key was on the bottom package. I'm home alone. There's no one here to mess with me. Plus, these tortillas were stacked on top of each other, and the key was underneath. Not right in the middle, but on it, enough that it doesn't seem like it couldn't have gotten there on its own. I had just been wondering what he did with the key so I could hang it up, but didn't see it. This was my mom's MO. Once she hid a keychain that had a tiny shoe on it in a box of cake mix my grandma was going to use, and stuck the box back in the pantry, just tucking odd things away in weird places. Sometimes, when things go missing and show up, I'll acknowledge it with, "Okay, haha, you're so funny." I've told a few of my weird stories on Reddit before, but today I'll talk about the haunted Walmart I used to work at. Like all good creepy stories, it starts with tragedy. The 1900 storm in Galveston took out an orphanage, nuns and kids and all. Many years later, a Walmart gets built near or on the site. So I was an overnight shift in-stock team member for most of this, usually surrounded by 12-foot shelves filled with various crap that we stock. I had brightly colored hair, and when I would crouch down to get something off of a lower shelf, I'd often feel my hair being touched. Once, even saw a piece of my bangs get raised all the way up in front of my face. Just the one piece, no wind, no nothing. Sometimes I'd feel it get pulled, and it would freak me out a bit. I didn't really think much of it. Maybe my scalp is just feeling weird only at night or something. Someone else with bright hair asked me if my hair ever got pulled at work, and then cheerfully told me it was just the ghost children. Don't worry about it. Okay. Things that had no business falling would fly feet off the shelves. A couple of times, things fell or flew very close to people's faces, and it seemed intended on scare us. Not threatening exactly, like a poorly planned prank. Sometimes it would sound like kids running around, but there were plenty of Norway rats to explain that away. The laughing sounds were a bit harder to dismiss, but still, acoustics can be weird. I did quite a bit of creative mending to my jeans and shirts, and no one cared because I didn't work with customers. The patches and words often felt like they were being touched or tugged on. Then came the paper, slowly drifting in lazy circles near the floor in a room without much of a breeze. I'm not really fazed by crap like that, and said, "Hey, that's really creepy. Please wait till I leave." Then the fucking paper went in circles in the opposite direction a couple of times and stopped. After that, I was like, okay, yeah, seems like there's something to all this nonsense. Not too long after, my coworker and I turned down one of the aisles between shelves and both instantly froze up. There was a little boy with a bowl cut in the middle of playing. He turned around and his eyes got huge, and he ducked into one of the huge shelves and faded out while he sat there looking worried. We both went to break after that, because what else do you do? There is what I believe is a spirit that likes to stomp up and down my stairs. It usually happens on a Thursday. The downstairs door will slam shut despite me knowing it was closed already, Then the heavy footsteps race up the stairs and get to the landing. They take 3 steps toward my bedroom door and stop. Then I hear them going back down. They'll keep doing this until I shout at them to shut the fuck up, I'm trying to sleep. Then it's silent. It's happened in daylight too. Early evening one day, I was in the bath washing my hair. I had my head under the water and heard the door slam, and it actually shook the house. I knew I'd closed it because I didn't want my cats escaping up the stairs to cause mayhem while I was stuck in the bath. The door is hard to open because the handle is stiff, so it doesn't just open itself. So I waited, and yep, the footsteps came stomping up my stairs. It sounded like someone wearing heavy workman's boots. They kept doing it, and I was trying to just ignore it, but it just wasn't stopping. There's this feeling of anticipation or tension you can almost touch when it happens, like the house is suddenly electrified and humming quietly. Never fear though, strangely. I knew it wasn't a neighbor because they were sitting outside in their garden. My bathroom window looks onto their garden. It was open and I could hear them talking. So at this point, I'd had my purple shampoo on for far too long, and I thought I saw a shadow peek around the bathroom door. Pissed off at being watched in the bath, I just screamed at it to fuck right off, I need to wash my hair. And the feeling and sounds all went away. It's like it tests me to see how much I'll let it get away with. I often smell brute aftershave on the stairs after this or right before it's going to happen. I didn't tell anyone about it until the bath incident. I just kept forgetting about it until it happened in daylight. I told my dad all of what I've said here, and he just smiled. My dad believes it's his dad making his final journey home. He exclusively wore brute aftershave. He died suddenly in this house at a young age, and he made it up the stairs and collapsed at my bedroom door. 9 heart attacks, one after another, so no chance of surviving. So, I'm not scared of it because it feels curious most of the time. His dad wore heavy work boots too. The upstairs of this house has always creeped me out. As a kid, I was terrified to go upstairs at night, and my granny would have to come with me. Nobody told me anything until I was older, but everyone that comes into the house is scared to go upstairs at night. There's just this feeling of someone standing at the top of the stairs looking down when you walk in the front door or stand at the bottom of them. You can see it out of the corner of your eye sometimes. The first time I heard it on the stairs, I grabbed a knife, hid in my wardrobe, and cried because I thought it was human. I thought someone had broken in. Many years ago, I moved to my first apartment downtown. It was a shithole of an apartment. Around that time, I got into spiritual practices like attending drumming circles, working with shamans, and learning how to do journey work. I was also learning about other practices like Wicca and witchcraft. I just wanted to learn as much as I could. Theology is fascinating to me. One night, after a deep meditation session, I couldn't sleep. Finally passed out around 5 a.m. It was light outside. I remember waking up a few hours later and rolled over. My eyes were open. My mind was awake. It wasn't sleep paralysis, but I saw a girl standing next to my bed. She was maybe 9 or 10 and wore a long white nightgown. She had curly blonde hair and a very pale face. Her eyes were cold, and she had dark circles under her eyes. She just stood there staring at me with that cold, empty stare. I was still sort of half asleep and just rolled over and shrugged it off. It wasn't until I woke up later that I literally threw myself off the bed and ran out of the room. I cleansed my apartment with sage and blessings and never saw the girl or anything like that.